Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. This is my story, one I never thought I'd share, but maybe someone out there needs to hear it. What happened to me changed everything I believed in about love, trust, and betrayal. So here it goes. It started, like most catastrophes, on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday. Sun shining, birds chirping, the whole cliché. I'd just gotten home from work, a soul-crushing grind at a mid-level management job I neither loved nor hated. It just was. It paid the bills, kept the lights on in our nice suburban house, the one with the slightly too big mortgage, and the lawn I meticulously cared for every Saturday morning. Sarah, my wife, was supposedly at her book club, something she'd started going to religiously about 6 months prior. Our son, Leo, who's 10, was sprawled on the living room floor, engrossed in some game on his tablet. That tablet, innocuous little rectangle of glass and plastic, gateway to worlds both fantastical and, as I would soon discover, devastatingly real. I ruffled his hair, asked him about his day, the usual dad routine. He mumbled something about school being boring and needing help with a level on his game. Standard stuff. I kicked off my shoes, loosened my tie, the familiar weight of the day settling on my shoulders. 15 years. 15 years Sarah and I had been married. We met in college, young, idealistic, maybe a little naive. I fell hard. She was vibrant, funny, ambitious. We built a life together, brick by painstaking brick. The wedding, the first apartment, the promotions, the house, then Leo, our anchor, our joy. Of course, it wasn't always perfect. What marriages we had arguments, disagreements about money, about parenting styles, about whose turn it was to take out the trash. Normal life friction. But infidelity, betrayal that wasn't supposed to be part of our story. We were the stable ones, the couple our friends looked to as proof that it could work, that love could endure the mundane realities of mortgages and school runs. We had routines, shared jokes, a history woven together thread by thread. We still held hands sometimes, watching TV. We still said, "I love you." Or at least, I did. And I thought I heard it back. Maybe I'd become complacent. Maybe I'd started taking things for granted, assuming the foundation we'd built was unshakable. There had been small things, I suppose. Looking back now, they scream at me, bright red flags flapping furiously in the hurricane of hindsight. Sarah had become more protective of her phone lately, angling the screen away, taking calls in the other room. More nights out with the girls or working late on projects I never quite got the details on. She'd bought new clothes, more adventurous lingerie than she usually wore. When I'd commented, she'd laughed it off, saying she just wanted to feel good about herself, maybe spice things up for us. I'd bought it. Why wouldn't I spice things up? Yes, please. I suggested a weekend away, just the two of us. She'd seemed hesitant, citing work commitments, Leo's schedule, a dozen plausible excuses. The book club nights seemed frequent, sometimes running incredibly late. But she'd come home smelling faintly of wine and library dust, complaining about Carol's terrible taste in novels. It all seemed plausible. Annoying, maybe, that she seemed less invested in us, but plausible. Maybe I was just being insecure, a little needy. I'd pushed those thoughts down. Trust. That was the bedrock, wasn't it? Without trust, what did we have? So I trusted. I chose to believe the stories, the excuses, the carefully constructed narrative of our perfectly normal, slightly boring, but ultimately solid marriage. I focused on work, on Leo, on fixing that leaky faucet in the guest bathroom. I ignored the faint, persistent hum of unease deep in my gut. The intuition I chose to silence. That Tuesday, though, the universe decided I couldn't ignore it anymore. Leo needed help with his game. He thrust the tablet into my hands. Already logged in, the game paused mid-action. "Dad, I can't get past this stupid dragon." Typical kid problem. I smiled, ready to dispense some fatherly gaming wisdom. But as I took the device, my thumb brushed the edge of the screen, accidentally swiping it, closing the game and revealing the home screen. And there it was. Not hidden, not buried, just there. A notification banner at the top. From a cloud storage app. One I didn't recognize, but the preview showed a thumbnail. A photo of Sarah. Not the Sarah I knew, the mother of my child, the woman I shared my bed with. This was a different Sarah. A Sarah looking flushed, laughing, intimately close with someone who wasn't me. My blood ran cold. My first instinct was pure, unadulterated denial. It couldn't be. A mistake. A weird ad. A glitch. Maybe Leo had clicked on something inappropriate. My brain scrambled for logical explanations, anything to avoid the sickening conclusion forming in my gut. But the thumbnail was clear. Too clear. It was her. Her hair, the curve of her neck, the small mole just above her collarbone that I knew so well. And the man. I didn't recognize him instantly, but his arm was around her, possessive, familiar. His face was partially obscured, but the intimacy was blatant, undeniable. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. My breath hitched. Leo was still looking at me expectantly, waiting for help with his game. Dad the Dragon, his innocent voice sliced through the fog of my shock. I forced a smile, my lips feeling stiff and unnatural. Yeah, buddy. Just give me a sec. Let me see this dragon. My hands were shaking as I navigated back to the game, fumbling with the controls. How was this happening on Leo's tablet? Why did she use his tablet for this? Did she upload photos to some shared cloud account he had access to? The thought was vile, a violation on multiple levels. I tried to focus on the game, tapping randomly at the screen, pretending to strategize against the pixelated beast while my mind raced, replaying the image, the casual intimacy, the betrayal etched into that tiny preview. After a few minutes of pretending, I handed the tablet back. There, try that, I mumbled, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. Leo, oblivious, dove back into his game. I needed to see more. I needed confirmation, even as every cell in my body screamed against it. I felt like a voyeur, a spy in my own home, but the need to know, to understand the magnitude of this earthquake tearing through my life, was overwhelming. Later that evening, after Leo was asleep, I crept into his room. The tablet was on his nightstand, charging. My heart pounded guiltily. This felt wrong, invading his privacy, but the image I'd glimpsed had overridden all sense of propriety. I picked it up, my fingers trembling slightly. I found the cloud storage app. It wasn't password protected. Of course it wasn't. It was a kid's tablet. Inside, there was a folder. Innocuously named stuff. My breath caught. I tapped it open. It wasn't just one photo. It was dozens. Photos and short video clips. Spanning months. Sarah. Laughing, kissing, embracing the man from the thumbnail, a man I now vaguely recognized as someone from her expanded social circle, a friend of a friend, someone on the periphery I'd met maybe twice. Mark. His name floated up from the recesses of my memory. Mark, who was also married. There were pictures of them in hotel rooms, identifiable by the generic art and bedding. Pictures in his car. Pictures taken outdoors, somewhere secluded. Selfies, clearly taken by Sarah, looking happier, more alive than I'd seen her look in years. And messages. Screenshots of messages. Explicit, loving, planning clandestine meetings. Talking about me. About how oblivious I was. How easy it was to lie. Each photo, each message, was a physical blow. I felt winded, nauseous. The air thickened, pressing in on me. This wasn't a fleeting mistake, a one-time lapse in judgment. This was a calculated, ongoing affair. A double life lived right under my nose, facilitated by lies and deceit, documented and callously stored where our son could potentially stumble upon it. The sheer recklessness, the disrespect, was staggering. How could she risk Leo finding this? How could she look me in the eye, day after day? Knowing this was happening, the foundation I thought was bedrock crumbled into dust, revealing a chasm beneath my feet. The trust I'd so carefully guarded, so blindly offered, was shattered into a million irreparable pieces. I sat there on the edge of Leo's bed in the dark, the screen's glow illuminating my face, tears silently tracking down my cheeks. It wasn't just sadness. It was a profound, world-altering agony mixed with a white-hot rage that threatened to consume me. 15 years. Our life. Our family. All of it felt like a lie. A meticulously crafted illusion designed by her, starring me as the unsuspecting fool. The dragon in Leo's game was nothing compared to the monster that had just woken up inside me. The ordinary Tuesday had become the day my world ended. Or perhaps, the day a new, terrifying chapter began. The nights that followed were landscapes of torment. Sleep offered no escape. Only fractured nightmares populated by Sarah's laughing face intertwined with Mark's, morphing into grotesque parodies of intimacy. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, the phantom images seared onto the insides of my eyelids. During the day, I walked through my life like a ghost haunting familiar territory. Work became an unbearable charade. I'd sit in meetings, nodding along, pretending to care about quarterly reports and synergy, while my mind relentlessly replayed the photos, the messages, dissecting every nuance, every stolen moment documented on that cursed tablet. I felt hollowed out, scooped clean of everything but a gnawing pain and a simmering fury that felt dangerously close to boiling over. Home was worse. Sharing the same space with Sarah was exquisite torture. Every interaction was poisoned. Her smile seemed predatory, her touch felt like ice, her casual questions about my day landed like accusations. Did she suspect I knew? Was she testing me, or was she simply that good an actress, that comfortable in her deception? I started watching her. Really watching her, for the first time in years perhaps. The way her fingers tightened on her phone when a notification chimed. The vague excuses for errands that took hours longer than they should. The sudden bursts of forced affection that now felt cloying and manipulative. Every detail became evidence, confirmation of the betrayal I already knew was real. I saw the slight tremble in her hand when I asked an innocuous question about her evening plans, the way her eyes wouldn't quite meet mine. Were these signs I'd been blind to before, or was I projecting my newfound knowledge onto her every move? It didn't matter. The trust was gone, replaced by a corrosive suspicion that tainted everything. I'd copied the contents of the stuff folder onto a hidden USB drive, erasing the originals from Leo's tablet immediately after discovering them. The thought of him accidentally seeing them was unbearable, a protective instinct overriding even my blinding rage. That USB drive became my secret burden, a toxic artifact hidden in the back of my desk drawer. Sometimes, in the dead of night, fueled by sleeplessness and a morbid need to punish myself, I'd plug it in and look at the evidence again, each viewing deepening the wounds, solidifying my resolve. Maintaining normalcy for Leo was the hardest part. He was perceptive, our boy. He noticed the tension, the strained silences that stretched between Sarah and me like barbed wire. "Are you and Mom mad at each other?" he asked one evening, his brow furrowed with worry. I'd forced a smile, ruffled his hair, and lied. "No, buddy. Just tired. Grown-up stuff." The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. How could I protect him from this? How could I explain that the life he knew was built on a foundation of lies orchestrated by his own mother? The thought of shattering his world, his image of his mom, was paralyzing. But the alternative, living this lie, pretending everything was fine while resentment festered inside me, felt equally impossible. I felt trapped, isolated in my own home, drowning in knowledge I couldn't share, couldn't confront. Not yet. Confrontation felt like pulling the pin on a grenade. What would happen? Would she deny it, gaslight me, confess? Would our carefully constructed life explode, raining shrapnel down on all of us, especially Leo? Fear warred with anger. The desire to scream, to rage, to demand answers wrestled with the paralyzing fear of the fallout. I needed a plan. Raw emotion wouldn't cut it. Unleashing my fury might feel good for a moment, but it wouldn't achieve anything constructive. I needed clarity, strategy. I needed to understand the legal implications, the financial consequences, the best way to protect Leo. I started researching divorce lawyers, discreetly, late at night when the house was silent except for the frantic clicking of my keyboard and the frantic beating of my own heart. I read articles about infidelity, custody battles, asset division. It was a cold, grim education in the mechanics of dismantling a life. The pain was constant, a dull ache behind my ribs, but the rage was slowly, terrifyingly, beginning to crystallize into something else. Something harder, colder. A need not just for answers, but for accountability, for justice. The word echoed in the hollow spaces inside me. Justice. What did that even mean in a situation like this? I wasn't sure yet. But I knew I couldn't let this stand. I couldn't let her simply walk away from the wreckage she'd created without facing the consequences. The betrayal wasn't just against me, it was against our family, against the vows we'd taken, against the life we were supposed to be building together. And it was stored, disgustingly, on our son's tablet. That specific detail, the sheer audacity and carelessness of it, fueled a different kind of fire. It wasn't just about my broken heart anymore. It was about the violation of our shared life, the sanctity of our home, the innocence of our child. The breaking point came about 3 weeks after the discovery. 3 weeks of living in a suspended state of silent agony, of forced smiles and hollow conversations. 3 weeks of watching Sarah flit in and out, weaving her web of lies with increasing carelessness, emboldened, perhaps, by my continued silence. It was a Friday night. She was getting ready to go out. Another late book club meeting, she claimed, dressed in a new outfit I didn't recognize, humming happily to herself as she applied her makeup. The casualness of it, the sheer normalcy she projected while preparing for what I knew was a rendezvous with her lover, finally snapped something inside me. The carefully constructed dam holding back weeks of pain, anger, and confusion burst. I waited until she was about to leave, keys dingling in her hand, a bright, false smile plastered on her face. "Have fun at book club," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. She paused at the door, sensing the shift in tone. "Thanks, honey. Don't wait up." "Which book are you discussing tonight?" I asked, keeping my voice level, conversational, but my eyes locked onto hers. A flicker of surprise, then caution, crossed her face. "Oh, just the new one by, you know, the author we like." "Vague. Always vague." "Right," I said, taking a slow step towards her. "The one with the chapter about clandestine meetings and budget hotel rooms, or is it the part about sending explicit photos using your son's cloud storage?" Her face went completely white. The key slipped from her grasp, clattering onto the hardwood floor. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Her eyes darted around, like a trapped animal seeking escape. What are you talking about?" she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. That was it. The denial. The immediate, instinctive leap to gaslighting. It fueled the cold fire that had been building inside me. I didn't shout. I didn't rage. I walked calmly to my desk drawer, retrieved the USB drive, and returned to the hallway. I held it up. "I'm talking about this, Sarah. About Mark. About the photos. The videos. The messages. About the affair you've been having behind my back for at least the last 6 months, probably longer. The one you documented and carelessly stored on Leo's tablet." Her composure shattered. Tears welled in her eyes, but they didn't evoke pity in me anymore, only a weary disgust. How did you?" "Does it matter how I interrupted?" My voice still low but cutting. "Does it change what you did? Does it change the fact that you lied to me every single day, that you risked our son finding out, that you treated our marriage, our family, like it was disposable? The confrontation wasn't explosive like I'd sometimes imagined. It was colder, bleaker." She sank onto the bottom step of the stairs, burying her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. There were no real excuses, no justifications, just panicked attempts at damage control. "It wasn't serious," she claimed. "It didn't mean anything. She still loved me. It was a mistake." Lies. All of it felt like more lies, desperately thrown up to shield herself from the consequences. Who is he? Really, I pressed. How long? While the answers came haltingly, interspersed with tears and pleas for forgiveness. Mark. Yes, it was Mark. It started about 8 months ago. Why she didn't know? Boredom. Feeling neglected. Feeling desired again. The usual, pathetic litany of justifications that did nothing to excuse the depth of the betrayal. She swore it was over, that she'd ended it the moment she suspected I might know. A lie, I was sure. She begged me not to leave, not to break up the family, not to tell anyone. We could fix this, she insisted. We could go to therapy. But sitting there, looking at her, I didn't see the woman I'd loved for 15 years. I saw a stranger who had prioritized her fleeting desires over everything we had built, over the well-being of our child. The trust wasn't just broken, it was annihilated. There was nothing left to fix. No, Sarah, I said, the finality settling heavily in the air. We can't fix this. You broke this. You made that choice. I told her I needed her to leave. Not permanently. Not yet. I needed space. I needed to think. She protested, pleaded, but the cold resolve in my eyes must have convinced her I was serious. She packed a small bag, tears streaming down her face, avoiding my gaze. Seeing her diminished, stripped of her usual confidence, didn't bring me satisfaction, only a profound sadness for the life that was now irrevocably gone. The practicalities hit me later that night, sitting alone in the deafening silence of the house. Divorce. Lawyers. Custody. Telling Leo. The word epic from the title I imagined for this story echoed ironically in my head. There was nothing epic about this feeling, just a vast, aching emptiness where my marriage used to be. The path forward was shrouded in fog, but one thing was crystal clear: I would not be the silent victim in this narrative she had tried to write. The initial aftermath of Sarah leaving was a strange mix of relief and desolation. The constant tension that had permeated the house was gone, replaced by an unnerving quiet. But the quiet allowed the pain and anger to echo louder in my head. I spent the first few days oscillating between furious energy, cleaning closets, fixing things around the house, anything to keep my hands busy, and paralyzing inertia, where I just sit and stare, the full weight of the situation crushing me. Telling Leo was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I kept it simple, age-appropriate, focusing on the fact that Mom and Dad weren't getting along right now and needed some space, that Mom would be staying somewhere else for a little while, but that we both loved him very, very much, and that wasn't changing. His confusion and sadness were a fresh wound, a direct consequence of Sarah's actions, and it hardened my resolve. This wasn't just about my broken heart anymore. It was about protecting my son and ensuring his future wasn't further damaged by the fallout. Sarah, meanwhile, was alternating between desperate voicemails pleading for reconciliation and angry texts accusing me of ruining her life. She seemed genuinely shocked that I wasn't immediately folding, wasn't willing to sweep everything under the rug. It highlighted how little she truly understood me, or perhaps how much she'd taken my stability for granted. I hired a lawyer, a sharp woman named Helen whose calm demeanor belied a formidable reputation. We met. I laid out the situation, handing over the USB drive with the evidence. Helen was professional but empathetic. She confirmed what I suspected: the evidence was damning, particularly the fact it was stored on our son's device. While infidelity itself doesn't always drastically alter financial settlements in our state, the recklessness and potential emotional harm to the child could certainly influence custody arrangements and potentially provide leverage in negotiations. This is where the idea of epic started to shift for me. It wasn't about staging some elaborate, movie-style revenge plot against Sarah and Mark. It wasn't about public humiliation for its own sake, although the thought was tempting in my darker moments. The epic part, I decided, would be ensuring that Sarah faced real, tangible consequences for her actions within the legal and financial dissolution of our marriage. It would be about securing stability for Leo and myself, ensuring she didn't just walk away unscathed after detonating our lives. It would be about using the truth, the evidence she herself created and carelessly stored to achieve a just outcome. My plan wasn't about vengeance, it was about accountability. Helen advised a strategic approach. We wouldn't immediately unleash the full extent of the evidence. Instead, we would start the divorce proceedings, making standard filings. Sarah, likely assuming I wouldn't use the photos due to potential embarrassment or concern for Leo, would probably push for a favorable settlement, perhaps even majority custody. Her initial communications through her own hastily hired lawyer certainly suggested this, painting herself as the wrong party, vaguely citing irreconcilable differences. The first step was the financial disclosure. This is where things got interesting. Sarah had always handled most of our day-to-day finances, claiming I was terrible with money. I trusted her. Another mistake. As Helen and I dug into bank statements and credit card bills, a pattern emerged. Unexplained expenses, cash withdrawals, hotel charges that didn't line up with any family trips or her known solo activities, purchases from boutiques I'd never heard of. It wasn't just an emotional betrayal. She'd been using our joint finances to fund her affair. The scale wasn't enormous, not enough to bankrupt us, but it was significant. Thousands of dollars siphoned off over months. This added another layer to the betrayal and another tool for our strategy. During the initial mediation sessions, Sarah and her lawyer were confident, almost arrogant. They pushed for significant spousal support, primary custody, and a division of assets heavily weighted in her favor. Sarah played the victim card beautifully, crying about how I'd thrown her out, how devoted she was to Leo. My lawyer, Helen, remained calm, simply stating our position: joint custody, a fair division of assets based on documented contributions and liabilities, and minimal spousal support given the circumstances and her earning potential. Sarah's lawyer scoffed. That's when Helen subtly introduced the first piece of leverage. Not the photos, not yet. She presented the documented financial discrepancies, the unexplained withdrawals and charges, asking for clarification. Sarah visibly faltered. Her lawyer looked surprised, clearly unaware of this financial dimension. The confidence in the room shifted perceptibly. They requested a recess. The next phase was custody evaluation. Sarah continued her campaign for primary custody, emphasizing her role as the primary caregiver, conveniently omitting the hours spent with Mark. This is where Helen advised deploying the core evidence, but strategically. Not in open court initially, but in a carefully worded submission to the custody evaluator and opposing counsel. The submission detailed the timeline of the affair, supported by select, non-explicit but clearly incriminating photos and message excerpts. Crucially, it highlighted the recklessness of storing this material on Leo's tablet, raising serious questions about her judgment and fitness as a primary custodian. Emphasizing the potential for psychological harm had Leo discovered the material himself. The effect was immediate and profound. Sarah's lawyer contacted Helen within hours, the arrogance gone, replaced by a tone of urgent negotiation. Sarah knew, her lawyer knew, that if this evidence became part of the public court record, the narrative she'd tried to spin would be destroyed. Her position on custody crumbled. The fight went out of her. The epic moment wasn't a public shaming. It was the quiet, undeniable power of the truth, deployed strategically. It was watching her realization that her actions had unavoidable consequences, that the evidence she thought was hidden or that I wouldn't dare use was now dictating the terms of her future. She quickly agreed to a $5,050 custody arrangement, dropping her demands for primary custody. She also agreed to a significantly less favorable financial settlement, acknowledging the funds used during the affair and accepting limited, short-term spousal support instead of the long-term alimony she initially demanded. There was no shouting match, no dramatic courtroom reveal. Just the quiet, decisive weight of evidence turning the tables. It felt validating. Not triumphant, not joyous, but deeply validating. Justice, served cold and factual. The final divorce decree arrived a few months later, a thick manila envelope containing the legal documentation that formally ended 15 years of marriage. Holding it felt surreal. There was no sense of victory, no elation, just a profound sense of closure mixed with a lingering sadness for what was lost. The epic part, the strategic use of the evidence to secure a fair outcome, felt less like revenge and more like reclaiming control over a narrative that Sarah had tried to hijack. It was about ensuring accountability, protecting my son, and setting the stage for us to rebuild our lives on a foundation of truth, however harsh. Life after the divorce settled into a new rhythm. Co-parenting with Sarah was, and remains, a challenge. We communicate primarily through text and email, keeping interactions brief and focused solely on Leo. The warmth, the friendship, the shared history, all that is gone, replaced by a necessary, functional politeness. Sometimes I see glimpses of the woman I married, but they are fleeting, overshadowed by the memory of the betrayal. The anger has mostly subsided, replaced by a kind of weary acceptance. Forgiveness, I'm not there yet. Maybe I never will be. Forgiveness feels like letting her off the hook, minimizing the profound damage she caused. Perhaps acceptance is the more realistic goal. Accepting that this happened, that it changed everything, and that I cannot undo it, only move forward. Leo adapted remarkably well, testament to his resilience and, I hope, to the efforts Sarah and I both made, despite our issues, to shield him from the worst of the conflict and maintain stability in his routine. The 50-50 custody means he splits his time between two homes now. It's not the life I envisioned for him, but we make it work. Our time together is precious. Without the constant background noise of a dying marriage, I feel more present, more connected to him. We talk more, play more, share more adventures. He knows his parents live apart, but he also knows, without a doubt, that he is loved fiercely by both of us, even if we can no longer love each other. Rebuilding my own life is an ongoing process. I sold the house, too many ghosts, and moved into a smaller place closer to my work and Leo's school. It felt like shedding his skin, letting go of the physical manifestation of the life that had imploded. I focused on my health, started exercising again, reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during the fog of my marriage's final years. Dating the thought still feels daunting. The idea of trusting someone that intimately again is terrifying. The scars are deep. How do you know if someone is genuine? How do you silence the voice whispering that history might repeat itself maybe someday, but not yet? Right now, my focus is on myself and my son, on healing and finding peace in our new normal. I learned some hard lessons. That trust, once shattered, is nearly impossible to fully restore. That people you love are capable of unimaginable deceit. That complacency in a relationship can be dangerous. But I also learned about my own strength. I survived something I thought would destroy me. I faced the ugliest truths, navigated the legal complexities, protected my son, and stood up for myself. I refused to be defined solely by Sarah's betrayal. I found a resilience I didn't know I possessed. The epic part wasn't really about the photos or the legal maneuvering. The epic part was surviving the blast radius and choosing to rebuild rather than remain buried in the rubble. It was about finding justice not through vengeance, but through accountability and the quiet strength of carrying on. It was about transforming unimaginable pain into a catalyst for reclaiming my own life and ensuring a stable future for my son. The experience stripped away my naivety, leaving behind a rawer, more cynical version of myself, perhaps, but also a stronger one. I look at Leo, laughing as we kick a ball around the park, and I know I did the right thing. We are moving forward, scarred but not broken. And that, in itself, feels pretty epic. Looking back, I realize I lost a part of myself, but I also found something stronger. If you've ever been betrayed, know this: you're not alone, and healing is possible. Thank you for listening to my story. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real stories like this one. Until next time, take care of yourself.